Hello and welcome to Unity of Fredericksburg. My name is Andrea and I'm pleased to welcome all of you to the Unity of Fredericksburg weekly online gathering. At Unity of Fredericksburg, we are advancing the movement of spiritual awakening and transformation through unity, a positive path for spiritual living. We thank those of you watching on YouTube live or later and invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you are able to attend live, we encourage you to join us in the Zoom community room for the full Sunday morning experience, including music, prayer, and connection. Our weekly newsletter includes the Sunday service link, and you can subscribe to receive that on our website at uofva.org. For everyone local to Central Virginia, Unity of Fredericksburg offers a variety of fun and enriching in-person gatherings every month. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter at uofva.org for all the details. Our message today comes from our minister, Reverend Cheryl. And now, here's Reverend Cheryl.
Thank you, Andrea, and welcome everyone who is in the Zoom room with me right now, and those of you who are watching on YouTube or who catch the recording on social media. However it is that you are connecting with Unity of Fredericksburg, we are so glad to have you part of the energy that is our spiritual community. Our broadcast date today is October 5, 2025. So welcome to the fourth quarter of 2025. I've got a little news story from Spiritual Passages to get us going here today. Did you know that October the 5th is World Teachers Day? A global occasion to honor the vital role of teachers in shaping individuals and societies. And we've got a quote from Nelson Mandela: "Education is the most powerful tool which you can use to change the world." So we just want to take a moment right now and honor all the teachers in our community of Unity of Fredericksburg and beyond. I know we've got some really good teachers in our group, and I'm sure each and every one of us can remember a teacher that made a difference. And here at Unity of Fredericksburg, we are constantly participating in the activity of learning together, learning and exploring, in particular, unity principles and practices. And today we're focusing on the practical application of some core spiritual tools taught by the Unity founders all the way back in the late 1800s that help us maintain a healthy and happy life experience. And this is a do-it-yourself approach, a DIY, all right? You don't need a coach. You don't need a teacher to do this once you learn it, or a minister. You can do it yourself in 3 simple steps. Now, our Unity founders, and when I say that, I'm referring to Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. I'm also referring to Emily Cady, who's the author of Lessons in Truth. They actually taught these steps as 2 steps. So, and they called them denials and affirmations. So, for those of you who like to have a good scripture foundation for what it is we're working for, sure enough, just as everything Unity does is based on the teachings of Jesus, you can find the connection in Matthew 5, verse 37, when Jesus said, "Let your word be yes, yes, or no, no." So we'll connect with that as we keep going through. Let's start out with saying, what are denials? So here's a quote from Charles Fillmore in Dynamics for Living. "Human consciousness contains a multitude of false personal beliefs and collective beliefs. Denial is the mental process of erasing from consciousness false beliefs." And here's a little bit from Emily Cady. A denial is to deny the claims of error consciousness, to declare these claims to be untrue. So these would be, what kind of things are we talking about? We're thinking about those little thoughts that pop up that say, there's not enough. there's not enough money or not enough friends or not enough whatever, or I'm not good enough or tall enough or smart enough or rich enough. Those kinds of thoughts and beliefs that show themselves when we're, kind of facing something new, something challenging. These little thoughts show up, and like these are what our Unity founders would call error beliefs held in consciousness, right? And so denials were things that they taught to let's erase those from our consciousness. So, what are affirmations? So, an affirmation is a statement of spiritual truth. Now, spiritual truth is very different than the truth of our outer world. So, we are stating spiritual truth despite in spite of what we might be seeing in our outer world. And when we do that, we kind of prepare our consciousness to make a shift to believing in, say, the abundance of all that is, when we're seeing, well, I only have two and I want to have 20. We can, if I can look at a circumstance like I only have two and believe in that limitation, or I can affirm my belief in the absolute abundance of God expressing in my life all the time. And that way, I train my brain to look for the abundance, right? To look for the good rather than dwelling in thoughts of lack. So, denials and affirmations are powerful tools that we can use to tidy up our consciousness. Unity has been teaching those since the late 1800s. But wait a second, my title said 3 steps to maintaining healthy consciousness. So, what is that third step? Where did that come from? So, we know that human beings, what we know of the world and of how human beings operate, that evolves over time, right? As I mentioned, the Unity movement was founded in the late 1800s. Many things have changed since then. Humanity's consciousness has continued to evolve. And in particular, in the late 1980s, an idea kind of came into the the I don't know, the collective consciousness, this idea being spiritual bypassing. So it was introduced, the first indications of it were from a Buddhist teacher and psychotherapist named John Wellwood. I learned about it in a book called Spiritual Bypassing, written by Robert Masters in 2010. Spiritual bypassing happens when we use our spiritual beliefs and our practices to avoid psychological work that needs to be done and difficult emotions. Like, I'm not going to pay attention to that. That doesn't exist. That's what spiritual bypassing is, when we use our practice to numb out or disengage. And we're not here to say that Unity teachings of denials and affirmations are spiritual bypassing. No, 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 no. But some people can use them in that way. You always can misuse them. What they do, what denials and affirmations, as originally taught, does is like move us immediately into action in what's going on, kind of in our world, and skip an essential step. That essential step being self-reflection, self-realization, pausing and noticing what's going on in our human lives. And that, my friends, is key to our personal growth and development. So we're going to start again with what I would say is step one in our 3 steps that we're talking about today. Step one is acknowledgement. So, practicing the pause. So, when you feel unsettled, angry, worried, whatever, pause. Notice what's going on. Reflect on what's going on in your life before you move into action, even spiritual action. Do some journaling. So, have any of you Have you ever felt eager and you rushed into something without thinking it through? Anyone? Ah, I see you. I hear you. So you need to practice the pause. Acknowledge what's going on. Another example, can you remember a time when you felt pressured and rushed into a decision and then regretted it later? Anyone? I bet yes. I know I have. So again, practice the pause. So here's how we do step one of acknowledgement. So do it with me right now. I want to ask you to think of a situation that's bothering you right now or has recently bothered you. Now, we're not going to actually kind of take the time to do the practice, but I'm going to tell you how to do it so you can do it on your own, right? So you kind of bring an issue to mind, take some quiet time, maybe have something, pen and paper, and ask yourself some questions. How does this feel in my body? So think about the situation you have in mind. Do you feel an unsettled tummy? Do you feel a tightness in the throat? Just notice how it shows up in your body. What emotions come up for you around this issue? Are you feeling anger? Are you feeling sadness? What emotions? Notice what thoughts pop into your head. Those little thoughts of your brain going, oh, yeah, what about this? What about that? Make a note of what those are. What kind of beliefs? So if you think like, oh, I would really like to try this, and then immediately a belief shows up going like, that never worked before, just notice those. So acknowledgement is not an activity of doing, it's about being in the moment, pausing, noticing, and getting real with ourselves about how whatever this issue is showing up in your life. So I suggest that you take time with that, write some things down, and then you'll refer back to them as we move on to steps 2 and 3. Now, what I suggest is that because we're going to be creating statements, and the way they used to teach it would be a denial statement, an affirmation statement, I want you to go ahead and work through developing those statements before you actually do them. So it's like we've done 1, now we're going to do 2 and 3. We're going to get it planned out. All right. So now we want to reframe a little bit our language. So as I mentioned, it was presented as denial. And today I'm calling it, and I keep evolving, but today I'm calling this activity an intentional release. Now, the reason we no longer use the term denial is that during the 20th century, with the development of modern psychology, which many of us have taken psychology courses, the word denial took on new meaning, different meaning. So it means something different now than it did in the late 1800s. So psychological denial, and this is a statement AI provided over the internet, like what is psychological denial? Is a defense mechanism where a person refuses to accept painful or overwhelming truth or reality, often as a way to protect themselves from difficult emotions or stress. So we don't want to be doing that. That sounds like spiritual bypassing, doesn't it? Being in psychological denial. So we're going to update our vocabulary, call it an intentional release. Now, those of you who have been with us recently know that in the third quarter, we did a nice tour through Unity's 12 powers, and one of our 12 powers is the power of elimination, renunciation, or yes, release. Huh? So, this activity of intentional release, back to the words of Jesus, this is your no, no. Let your words be yes, yes, or no, no. This is your no, no. So, whatever thoughts if you go back to your step one, those thoughts that pop into your head, those kind of things are present because part of you is giving it energy. Your brain is going, oh yeah, remember the last time that happened? That happens every single time. There's part of you that's giving it energy, that's feeding that belief. And what we're doing is we are releasing the attachment to that belief, to that thought. So here's an example. Let's say I fell down and I broke a bone and I'm feeling overwhelmed. Now, we're not using this release statement to deny the fact that I have a broken bone. We're not doing that. That would be bypassing, right? And we're not going to be using it to deny the feelings that I'm having. If I'm feeling overwhelmed and if I'm feeling worried, those are the feelings that are present. We're not denying any of that. We are looking to create an intentional release statement that gets us out of those moments where, for example, we're feeling like this is never going to end. Well, that's not true, is it? But we've all been to that moment where it's just like, I can't believe this is going on for so long. So we want to release that belief in permanence. We want to release ourselves from negative interpretations of things that bog us down all the time, making judgments about things that our eyes see without knowing the truth of it. We want to release ourselves from that. And we want to release ourselves from identifying ourselves with the circumstance. Like if I have a broken bone, well, I'm incapacitated. That's what I am. It's more that we want to release. So how do we create this statement? Again, you want to look back at the notes you took for yourself in step one. So let's say in step one, you notice that there's a thought that comes up, and that thought is things never work out for me. Anybody ever have that thought? Even though you know it's not true, it's like, oh, it shows up. Things never work out for me. So a sample release statement would be, I give no power to pessimistic thinking, right? I give no power to pessimistic thinking. So, and that is the suggested format is I give no power to, because we're the ones that are kind of attaching ourselves to these thoughts. There's nobody outside is putting those in our heads. So we're the ones that can stop giving it power, right? I give no power. All right, so there we go. That is an intentional release statement. So now we're going to move on to step three, which is creating an affirmation, or some people like to use the word assertion, assert myself, right? So what is an affirmation? This would be back to our scripture reference. This is what Jesus would say, let your words be yes, yes. This is your yes, yes, right? So I suggest, again, reflecting on your work in step one, reflect on how you would like to feel in this situation. Whatever the situation is that you're reflecting on, how would you like to feel? Would you like to feel confident? Would you like to feel safe? Would you like to feel peaceful? Whatever it is, use that, how you would like to feel, to help guide you in creating an affirmation statement. Now, you want to be sure to use spiritual words in your affirmation, not outer outcomes. So we're not here to think like we can be like, I dream of Jeannie, like I want to, be 2 inches taller and have, gorgeous long wavy hair or something. That's no, we don't want to create an affirmation that has to do with outer circumstances. What we do want to do is affirm the spiritual truth of who and what we are so that we can encourage ourselves to show up with that energy into this circumstance. So, one suggestion, my friends, the whole third quarter, we were studying the 12 powers. choose one of the 12 powers to create your affirmation. So, with this example we've been working, where this thought is things never work out for me, then a natural choice would be the power of faith. So here's a suggested affirmation for that. I am the power of faith, trusting that good is present in every circumstance. So that I am is very powerful, right? I am, and then name a strong spiritual quality that feels like it would work really well for this situation. All right. So we've got step 2 and step 3. So now we're going to do them. Now that you've created your release statement, created your affirmation statement, then you practice them together once you've got them ready. All right. So we're still working with this example of things never work out for me. So then when it comes to our release statement, which you've already heard, we want to say it out loud. We really want to mean it. I give no power to pessimistic thinking. Just kick that to the curb. And then you'll want to follow it up with your affirmation statement. I am the power of faith, trusting that good is present in every circumstance. So that's us using those. So I'd like to give you an example, kind of something you can work with in your imagination to help you remember all of this. I know that many people are accomplished gardeners, whether you're doing landscaping or vegetable gardening or growing flowers, whatever it is you're doing. One thing that's helpful is to think of this process like tending the garden of your consciousness, right? So you have in your consciousness, you have wonderful thoughts and beliefs growing about goodness and about love and strength and faith and all of those. And then in every garden, there are things that we consider a weed. That thought that keeps popping up, things will never work out for me. All right. So this process of doing an intentional release is like pulling the weeds, right? It's important to weed your garden, right? Because if you don't, then all the things that you don't want growing there choke the good things growing, right? So they cut off the light and they take the resources from the plants that you do want to grow. So you want to pull all those weeds with your intentional release, and then you want to, plant the new seeds of the things you want to be growing there. That's where you do your affirmation and you are affirming your 12 powers. So that's kind of, an example that you can use to work with this. Now, we know that in pretty much every garden, those weeds will come back, don't they? Yeah, you might get one section like really cleared out and doing well, but you always have to come back and keep an eye on it, right? Because those beliefs can be really deep-seated. It can come from something that you even came into this life with, or something that happened very early in your life. You formed these beliefs. So you need to keep practicing. So it's never one and done. Now with these release statements, you don't want to be dwelling on it, because if you dwell on it too much, you end up like giving it energy again, right? About those, our release statement about I give no power to pessimistic thoughts. So once my suggestion is you've created a good release statement, you've said it with power, you believe that you're giving no power to that. But then when you see the little weed poking up, when you hear it again, you can give yourself a little shorthand to quickly do that release again. And one of the things that Unity founder Charles Fillmore suggested was to think about using denials, as he called them, with the energy of brushing aside a cobweb. Um, I always, as a person of my age, think back to the first Star Wars movie when Obi-Wan Kenobi, pulled up in front of the stormtroopers and he had some, androids in his vehicle and he didn't want them to be noticed. And then he just kind of goes like this and says, "These are not the droids you seek." So you can think of a little shorthand for yourself. When that little thought pops up, just brush it aside. Just brush it aside. Because you've already said you're not welcome here. So you don't need to get all angry, but just like, okay, because it'll maybe keep popping up. Another thing that I do with a persistent weed in consciousness is I'll also practice just being grateful, saying thank you to the thought itself. Thank you for reminding me to be mindful. Thank you for reminding me to be careful. Thank you. And you can go now. That's another way to just kind of brush it aside, right? So um, now I do want to say that so you've done step one and step two, and you kind of do for each issue, kind of do your process. But it's step three, affirmations. Feel free to repeat those often and to continue to build new ones around your issue. And so it'll help you build your confidence and create as many as you want. Like, can you, with the issue you have in mind, could you go through all 12 of the 12 powers and come up with one for each one? I bet you could. So, whatever you have coming up in your life, you, my friends, have the spiritual tools to support yourself in creating a beneficial experience in your life. And the more you practice these, the better you'll become at creating the experience that you want to have. Your experience is your choice. And this is a DIY project. Do it yourself. So we've talked about how to do it. Now we're going to spend some time in meditation to just kind of let it settle into our consciousness. Okay. So I'm going to start off our meditation with a reading from a lovely book called This Life is Yours. And this is by Reverend Linda Martella Whitsett and her daughter, Alicia Whitsett. And they have wonderful affirmations in here. So take a couple of deep breaths with me right now. And if you wish, you can allow your outer eyes to drift closed or just soften. I'm going to read for you to prepare ourselves for our time of meditation, an affirmation for release from This Life is Yours. Let me not be captivated by scrolling thoughts on autopilot. I am fully able to know the difference between helpful and unhelpful thinking. I activate my innate power of release to gently slough off unhelpful, non-productive thoughts. I am fully able to know the difference between truth and untruth. I renounce untrue patterns of thinking, clearing my mind so that my heart can know the truth. And with that, we will move into a time of stillness together right now. And as we begin to bring our attention back to this moment, right here, right now, just feel that activity of release, of letting go happening. Feel it throughout your body, throughout your heart and mind, letting go of all of those little thoughts and beliefs that question and doubt us. And we will close our time of meditation with another affirmation from This Life is Yours. This is the affirmation for faith. By claiming the perceiving power of faith, I expand my vision. I look beneath the surface of my circumstances to that of me which is real and enduring and whole. By faith, I look beyond my circumstances to my whole life. I believe in well being as the great possibility for each day. Through faith, I cultivate a capacity for positive, joyful expectancy. Ah, yes. So let's close our time of meditation with an affirmation we can say together, okay? I like to put my hand right on my heart space when I say an affirmation so that it is anchored in my body and in my heart space and not just floating around up here where my head is, right? So I'll say it once and you can repeat it with me, okay? I have the faith, power, and imagination to create a joyful life. Say it with me. I have the faith, power, and imagination to create a joyful life. We're going to say it one more time, but I just want to point out we're naming 3 different of our 12 powers. Let's say it again. I have the faith, power, and imagination to create a joyful life. So I do, and so do you, my friends. So thank you so much for being here with us at Unity of Fredericksburg, and I'm going to hand it back to Andrea.
Thanks for watching the weekly broadcast from Unity of Fredericksburg. Visit our website, uofva.org, to learn more about our mission of spiritual awakening and transformation, and support our ministry with your financial donation. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.